My name's Reid and I'm a career firefighter in Maryland. I've worked as a career firefighter for going on 3 years now. I volunteered starting in 2009 for about 9 years before I transitioned to volunteer to career. Favorite part of the job is riding the fire truck. We do a shift rotation to where one shift could be the fire truck, one shift could be the ambulance, one shift could be the paramedic ambulance. But the best days are always the fire truck days. The least favorite part of the job is sitting at the hospital for hours at a time, waiting for a bed with a patient because all the hospitals are, for the most part, busy beyond belief. What led me to start wanting to carry firearms is today's society and the way this world's going. You never know when the next shooting's gonna be. You never know when you might be the next victim or when you're gonna get attacked or in a situation to where you might need a firearm. So I ran a call for a patient that we call a known patient or someone that's a frequent flyer with us. We got the call roughly about 1 o'clock in the morning for a sick person, just a regular basic life support call. Arrived on the scene to find an older gentleman that we were familiar with already causing a hostile environment towards the first responders on the scene, which was me and my shift partner at the time. So we get there about 1 o'clock in the morning, right down the street from the firehouse, and I've already had incidents with this guy to where he's threatened us, tried to assault us. We've had to call the police on scene multiple times because of him. So my shift partner knew the circumstances. We switched roles to where he was the primary patient provider, and all I had to do was transport to the hospital, so that way I didn't have that much interaction with him. The only problem is once we got to the hospital, this is where his demeanor towards me got worse. We had him on the stretcher. He tried swinging at my face and tried punching me multiple times. He tried to get off the stretcher to come attack me. He said he was gonna kill me. He said he was gonna grab an AK-47 and come kill me. He knew where I lived supposedly because we weren't that far from the firehouse. He knew where I drove, so I don't know if he ever followed me home or anything like that. So we had to call for the police at the hospital, and when the police came, they obviously separated him, detained him, and kept him away from us until we transitioned patient care from us to the hospital. Now, I tried to get police reports for this call, and they told me no because I actually wasn't assaulted for this call. So my initial application for the Maryland Handgun Permit was denied. I applied as a first responder, had notarized statements, and they still denied me. To where that process, Maryland State Police sent me an email saying we've updated the status and we have a finalized answer for your application, to where I checked online at the portal where they denied me. Now, once I was on this portal, it gave me two options: to appeal with the state police and or appeal with the Office of Appeals, to which at that time I did both. So when I was denied for my Maryland handgun permit, the first thing I did was reach out to Ryan Gass. I let him know what was going on. Said, hey, I got denied, can you help me with what I need to do and some processes and what you've seen? And then once I was done talking to him, I reached out to a fellow firefighter of mine that I knew had his handgun permit, and I wanted to see the steps he took and the process he had to go through because I know he was originally denied as well. So looking at his statements compared to my statements were completely night and day. Mine were very, very short, not descriptive, didn't paint the picture that well. And looking at his, he put exactly what happened, how he felt, how that call made him feel, and what he was concerned with, as well as other statements that he got from other people on what they observed, very descriptive. So I was pretty much setting myself up for failure from the get-go with my statements, just not knowing what I needed to put or how statements should even be written for calls like this or situations or events that occurred like mine. So when I did the informal review with the Maryland State Police, I set up an informal phone interview with the first sergeant of the state police under the licensing division, to where he was pretty much asking me what else do I have to bring to the table to get them to approve my application. It was already denied, and at that point I needed more ammunition to bring to say, hey, this is why I need to carry a handgun, this is why I need a permit, right? So talking to him, I told him exactly what I had. I had notarized statements. The notarized statements I wrote, my shift partner wrote, my officer wrote, and I told someone about the incident from my station and got them to write a notarized statement. Now, talking to the first sergeant of the state police, he asked me for a police report. I tried to obtain a police report on the scene and was told no. So when I was on the phone with the first sergeant, he asked me what else do I have to get him to change his decision on my Maryland handgun permit. I was already denied, and at this point with the informal review, it's what am I bringing to the table to get him to approve my application? What do I have to prove to show that my life is in fear or my life is at risk for a future attack? So when I had this incident, I already had notarized statements, myself, my shift partner, my officer, and a fellow firefighter from my station. I had them all in a draft on an email. So as I'm on the phone with him, he said, you can go ahead and send those statements to me via email. All I had to do was type in his email address and hit send. To where he said, okay, give me a few days, I'm gonna look over this, and from what you're telling me, it sounds like you have enough to change and get approved for your Maryland handgun permit. Once I hung up the phone with him, it was about 3 or 4 days before I had an email updating my application status on the Maryland State Police portal saying that there is a new decision on my application. Obviously, I hurried up and checked to see what the application status was, to where it said, big bold letters, approved. Once I was notified I was approved, it was roughly 2 weeks before I actually got my Maryland handgun permit card in the mail. They told me 7 to 10 business days, and it was about the 11th or 12th business day that I was actually able to get my Maryland handgun permit in the mail. So I applied my Maryland handgun permit as only a first responder, being a career firefighter in Maryland with notarized statements. Now, when I got my Maryland handgun permit in the mail, I quickly looked on the back where it said restrictions, none. So I've been carrying now for about 2 months, and it feels pretty damn good. Being in Maryland and living in Maryland and being a Maryland resident, you never would think that getting your Maryland handgun permit would ever be a thing. And it takes a while to get used to, believe it or not, carrying a gun and thinking that you're okay and you're in the right, which you are because of your Second Amendment. I had my handgun permit when I was stationed in North Carolina. Again, it took time to get used to think, you go out and everyone's staring at you because you got a gun. Whether you're open or concealed, you just think everyone's staring at you and can pick up that you have a gun. And it takes a while to get used to. It definitely doesn't feel right at first, but once you start believing that you are right and you're not doing anything wrong as a Second Amendment and a citizen of Maryland, you get over it pretty quick, and you're just ready for anything that comes your way. So when I was going through the process with my Maryland handgun application, obviously I was telling other first responders that I knew of, hey, get on board with this. If I'm gonna find a way, I'm gonna find a way for you. I'm gonna help you as best as I can to try and get approved. I got a lot of feedback with that, saying you're never gonna get it, or you only applying as a first responder is BS, or there's no way that you didn't say you're a firearms instructor or whatnot. But believe it or not, it was only as a first responder. It was with notarized statements, which is the route that you need to go for personal protection, or one of the routes you need to go. And never did I say anywhere in my application that I was a firearms instructor. Because even if I did tell them I was a firearms instructor, they could have very easily hit me with a restriction saying only while performing your duties as a firearms instructor. And obviously I have zero restrictions because of the notarized statements I provided. So I know at this point a handful of firefighters in Maryland that have their handgun permit, whether it be notarized statements, whether they're a paramedic in charge of narcotics and can provide reasoning that they're a risk for a future attack, or their family because of drug seekers nowadays. There's many ways to go about being a first responder and finding a way to get your Maryland permit. So the biggest feedback I've gotten with all first responders and why they don't want to dive into this process or try to get their application is because I said try to get their application. We live in Maryland, so nothing's approved, and their biggest thing is they don't want to spend all this money and they get denied. And clearly I spent money, because it takes money to do this. I spent the money to take the class, get fingerprints, and submit my application, and I still got denied, right? So it's better to take a chance, whether you get denied or approved, because once you get denied, you can still appeal it with 2 options, the Maryland State Police and the Office of Appeals. So just because you get denied doesn't mean it's the end game, right? So you can get denied just like I did and fight to get it approved just like I was. So the biggest thing is take a chance. It's better to take a chance and try and fight for your rights to get a Maryland handgun permit than to sit back in the shadows and say, well, it's too much money and I don't have a good chance, or you don't even know, right? So it's worth taking the chance and trying to get your Maryland permit, whether you have to fight for it or you get approved the first time. First responders should obtain their training through PTPGun.com, because me being a first responder, I know the better steps to help you to get your permit, right? So different ways you can go about it. Me being a first responder and applying as a first responder only, I know the process, I know the appeals, I know the steps you need to take to obtain your Maryland permit, or at least try and get your Maryland permit. And I'm here to help with the process. So my thing to you is, if you're a first responder, reach out to us so we can help you with your application. But if you get denied or have been denied in the past, let us know so we can know your process. We can help more first responders, and we know different routes that people have taken to get their Maryland handgun permit.